Right, I'm back working on the Allis Chalmers Model B, which I pulled out of a barn recently. It hadn't been running for 20 years or so, but there wasn't much wrong with it. I just had to clean the carb and the plugs, and it fired up pretty easily. But it does have a few issues going on, which I need to fix up. I've noticed that the fuel tank leaks around here. It's been fiberglassed up at some stage, but it's still leaking from up around there and creeping down. So I'm going to try and fix that first of all. I'll take the tank off, give it a good clean up with acetone, and see if I can seal that up again. You can see that kind of moves a little bit, so it's creeping around through a hole somewhere and out this joint here. So I'll try and grind that back to bare metal, or at least bring it down here somewhere so that I can get a good seal, a new seal around that outlet. So I'm just flushing the tank out with water to reduce the risk of it going bang. Even though I've got all the fuel out, there's going to be fumes in there and I could be making sparks, so yeah, just give it a good flush out, then it's all pretty safe to work on. Alright, you can see what the problem was there. There's a hole straight through the tank. They hadn't gone back to bare metal before they fiberglassed it, so I think it's just sort of crept up through the rust and come out in the joins. So I've gone right back to metal now and gone out a bit further so that I can put a decent patch on there. So I'm just cleaning that up with acetone to get any oil and fuel off there. I think that's polyester resin. I'm going to be using epoxy. You can put epoxy over polyester, but not the other way around. Yep, that should do it. I'll put those two on and then I'll just kind of build it up around the edge with all the offcuts. Using a 4:1 epoxy for this. I won't need a lot, just to wet, it's only a small area. I'll go 20, I think. 20 mil to 5 should be enough, I think. So I just want to get all the air out of the mat. You can see the air bubbles there, like you can sort of see the whiteness of the mat. Chase those out, just sort of dab at them. It makes it easier to do this if you've got everything nice and rounded and curved, and then the air is less likely to get trapped under it if you make it all smooth and rounded. I do a lot of boat repairs, so I've got quite a few little offcuts. Perfect for this sort of job. Probably could have used JB Weld for this. Well, I think this is going to be stronger with the fibre in there, less likely to crack. I've brought it right up to near the edge of the fitting, and there's quite a few layers there, so I think that'll be pretty solid. So I'll just let that dry for a day, and come through every hour and just sort of dab it down, make sure there's no air bubbles forming, and that should be pretty solid, I think. While I'm waiting for the fiberglass to dry, I'll change the engine oil and filter. It looks like it's been on there for a few decades. I managed to find a new one for it. They're not that easy to find. And that was $70 just for that one filter. Crazy. Yeah, that's looking pretty black. Okay, so that rod goes right through the middle. Yeah, that gasket's just falling apart, look at that. I'll just put some oil into the base there, so it's not running so dry when it first starts up. Some oil on that seal. That plug is quite close to that filter. It feels like that could spark to the filter, so I might put a bit of rubber in between there. That should stop it arcing out on the filter. Perfect, that'll do it. Let's see what we've got in the gearbox. Nah, not a lot in there. It's in the same reservoir as the diff and gearbox. Normally when I drain tractor gearboxes, they're full of water and the oil is all milky, but that actually looks quite clean, so that's good to see. Obviously because it's been sitting in the shed, it hasn't had rain on it. Check those final drives. I see there's no way to actually drain those, so I'll just make sure they're at the right level. Put some more gear oil in there if they're low. It's a bit silly really that you can't actually drain them. There should be a bung there so you can drain all the old oil out, but anyway, that's what it is. Okay, that's got plenty of oil in it. Yep, plenty of oil in there. Not looking too bad. Right, it doesn't look like there's any antifreeze in the radiator. I think it's just water. So we'll flush that out and put some antifreeze in. There's also a little drain up there in the block. It's actually not too dirty. Actually there is a bit of antifreeze in there, but we'll flush it out and put some new stuff in there. See if there's any oil in the steering box. That is quite low. Okay. Right, I've let that dry overnight and it's hardened up. I ended up putting an O-ring around the edge of the fiberglass. I just thought that might create a bit of compression in the joint. So we'll put it on and see if it's holding fuel. It's looking good. That's been on there for half an hour and it hasn't leaked at all, so I think that'll be fine. You can bolt that tank back on now. That's the fuel line hooked back up and no more leaks. So I'm going to test out the starter motor now. It's a 6-volt system, but I don't have a 6-volt battery, so I'm just going to use a 12 with jumper leads and this wire, which is like acting like a resistor, to drop the voltage. And we'll just see if that starter motor works. Oh, look at that. Brilliant. That's great. Started straight up. Oh, that works perfectly. So I'm going to get rid of this 6-volt because that's obviously pretty knackered. That terminal is quite close to the metal part there, so I'll just block that battery up. Lift it up slightly. That's better. So much easier than cranking it. It's 10 times better now. So that oil looks good. Alright, we're getting there. Don't use shit on my tools. Come on. Oh well, that's most of the maintenance done. So we'll give it a good water blast now and get all the bird crap and dust off it. And then I'll spray it with diesel and oil just to stop that rust getting any worse. Right, I've just sprayed on a mixture of diesel and oil to stop the rust getting any worse. I only have to use probably a couple of 100 ml, it doesn't take a lot, and just use the air compressor to spray it on. Obviously keep it off the exhaust and anything that gets hot. Get all the grease points now. That should be enough. So I'll attach this saw bench now and see if I can get that up and running. Obviously hasn't been on there for quite a few years. There may be some parts missing, but I think most of it is there. But yeah, we'll bolt it on and see what we've got. Solid. I think that bearing is okay, it's just got a lot of old grease and dust on it, so I'll clean that up in the ultrasonic cleaner if I can, and see how it comes up. I don't really want to have to buy another one. That bearing's come up really well, so we'll just give that a blast with the air compressor and get any grit out of there, and that'll be perfectly alright to use. Now I assume this ring goes in beside the bearing there just to stop it floating around. I'm guessing that's where it goes. And that will keep it tight up against one edge. Otherwise that bearing could potentially move like this, which we don't really want. Right, there's a bit of a problem here because this cross member has been bent at some stage. It has closed in the frame slightly, so this end here is hitting this bearing housing. Frame needs to be pushed out. I've loosened this off as much as I can to try and get some more out of it, but I can't get those bolts through with it like that, so I'll just get the jack in there and see if I can push that apart a bit. All I need is a couple of millimeters on this end. how it all fits together without rubbing on the bearing housing. Alright, that shaft's all sorted. I've lined it up as best I can that way and that way so that everything's pretty well parallel. So I just have to make the belt for it now, wrap it around, get the length right, and then put this end piece on it, clamp it in, and then rejoin it at the right length. I set the shaft as far that way as I can until I get the belt on, then I can pull it this way to tension the belt. We'll see how we go. Cut that nasty piece off the end there. Very good. Got to get that in there and leave enough room for the pin to go through, obviously. That's better, it's nice and flat now. Done. Or I might just leave a bit sticking out either end so I can sort of fold it over, and that'll lock it in place. Beauty. That's pretty good tension, I think, actually. Now we'll start her up and see what happens. I might have to adjust that shaft either way if the belt comes off, but we'll give it a test like that and see what it does. Seems to be riding okay. Shaft looks nice and straight. Oh, well, that's running pretty sweet now. I've got it, managed to get it centered up. The belt was climbing off this side of it, so I just had to pull this side back. Now it's all lined up nicely. There's no shimmying in the blade. It's actually in pretty good condition, I think. So I just have to make a bit of a deck here, a couple of boards, one up there and one across, and then yeah, it's ready to put to work. That's coming along nicely. job. So that's working perfectly, everything's doing what it should. I think I'll make some sort of cover for this blade though, because if someone tripped over and landed on that, you're going to be having a bad day. I'll go and see what I've got lying around. I've had a rummage around the scrap metal pile and found this section off an old tractor bucket. I think I can just weld that on there. Not pretty, but at least it'll cover up that blade. Oh well, it's not the prettiest, but at least it's a bit safer. So if anyone trips over, they're not going to land on the blade. And if anything flicks around, it's not going to come and get me in the face. It's going to go sort of down. I've sharpened the blade up, so we'll crank her up and see how it goes. Cutting some bigger pieces. Wow, that cuts beautifully. That's so much quicker than a little chainsaw as well. Makes a nice smooth cut. I've got a load of branches and sawmill offcuts here which need cutting up, so I'll run those through and see how it handles that. Oh, that works perfectly. No problems at all. That belt stayed on. I think it has loosened a little bit, so I'll just have to move that shaft back. I find it a lot easier doing it at this level than using a chainsaw on the ground, because I get a sore back doing that. So yeah, it's definitely easier for me. Easier on the body. So that's the Allis Chalmers Model B. Getting on to 80 years old now, and still does a hard day's work, no problems at all. Great little machine. Right guys, thanks for coming along. We'll see you on the next one.